What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is The Flash, Season 5, Episode 16, Failures in Orphan. Rude? Um, okay. Things have definitely started to pick up. We finally have the episode where the Flash and Cicada face off. They do manage to convince him to take the cure, which I liked, because it really is something. Whenever they were talking about it, I didn't think it was possible. I was thinking about it, I'm like, he's fueled by hate. He's not just going to be a guy who's like, oh, okay, you appeal to my better sense of judgment? Well, sure, I'll take that cure. No, it makes sense that they would have to appeal to him about his daughter, niece, Grace. And yeah, it makes sense that that would be what convinces him, is that Barry goes to him not as the Flash, but more as Barry Allen, and says, "Look, I'm a father too. I get it. I would do anything for my daughter, and I know you would too. And that's why I really think this cure is going to be what's best for both of you." And that ultimately is what convinces him. So I like how they handle that. I think they did a good job making it seem realistic, where it's not just like, oh yeah, Cicada's just fine. He's like, sure, whatever, I'll take it. Because I definitely feel like there have been a few villains in the past that maybe have turned over a new leaf a little too easily. The only part of this episode that I didn't like is once again Nora. And again, it's because she is older than I think they wrote her. And that's the main problem I'm having with her this season, is that she's acting like a spoiled kid. And she's not a kid, she's an adult. And yeah, I get the fact that, it's new territory that she's in. She was raised by a single mother who wanted to take away her powers, and she does things in excess. I get that. Don't get me wrong. I understand why she's acting this way, but it would work better if she weren't in her 20s. And that's the big problem, is that she's in her 20s. So there's a problem here. And this is another scenario where any adult using a logical mind would say, okay, well, there's no set way that the Flash can speak to somebody and convince them. It's different for every person. And Barry even tells her that at one point. It's been different for every villain that I've managed to convince to turn over a new leaf. Like, it's not the same. He's not going to be the same. And yet she's sitting there, oh, I'm doing a scan of all of the Flash's stuff, all of his speeches that have caused his villains to turn. Maybe if I can compile them together into data. I'm like, you've got to know, like, you've got to understand the idea that it can't just be compiled into data. And they didn't even talk about that. They didn't reprimand her for it. It was more a story about she was so focused on this that she wasn't spending time with Barry and Iris before she has to leave. Which, of course, she knows she's not leaving yet, because there's still stuff to do after they manage to stop Cicada. But I don't know. It seems odd to me that nobody's bringing up the fact that she doesn't seem to make logical, rational decisions. She doesn't seem to understand what most adults would at her age. Like, she seems to have this weird worldview of everything, and I don't know. This was just, it wasn't the worst that she's been this season, but it was definitely weird. Like, just this whole concept of like, oh yeah, I can compile all the speeches into data and I can make the best speech of all speeches. And I'm just like, okay, sure. But aside from that, everything with Cicada was fun. It was interesting. Well, fun, not really the right word, but it was good. It was well written. The Joe and Cecile. I called her Celine so much this season. For some reason, I convinced myself that was her name. But the Joe and Cecile stuff, like, didn't really grab my interest, but it also wasn't terrible either. Personally, I thought the problem with the first interrogation was that she was being way too obvious that, like, something was up. The second interrogation was fine, because, like, she just subtly, like, there, and that's all it took. The first one, she was like, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, you're making it so obvious to this woman that something is up, that you're figuring out she's lying. Like, and Joe stopped it. Later on, he said, oh, it was because of my pride. I was thinking, no, it should have been because she was acting too obvious, that she was reading her mind and figuring out that she was lying. Like, it was so weird. I don't know. If they were going to do it where it was based on Joe's ego, then I would have liked it better if maybe Cecile tried to signal him subtly and then he didn't take the hint, or maybe he decided to let up, but to make her be so obvious, and that's why he stopped the conversation, but then later he says, no, it's actually because I like to do stuff alone. It didn't feel right. It felt weird. So it didn't really, I don't know, it didn't really grasp onto that story. But then, of course, we gotta talk about the final thing that happened in this episode. Grace is now a new cicada. I mean, I guess maybe the doctors haven't seen her. Maybe she aged up quickly. Maybe this is something completely different. Um, we did see at one point, whenever they went into her brain to try to wake her up, we saw that she's not exactly a good kid. Well, good kid. I mean, like in the sense of good and evil, and Team Flash, Cicada. She's more with her uncle, even though she knows her uncle is out doing all this stuff. And in fact, there was a cicada in her mind that attacked Nora. Looking back now, I do remember that the cicada had hair. I just kind of assumed that. I didn't think it would actually be a plot point, but now I'm thinking this is not actually Grace. I don't think. If I had to take a guess, this is a projection of her mind. That dark matter that's in her head, I feel like, is projecting this. Like this is her power. She has the ability to project things. If I had to guess, because otherwise it feels weird that she just all of a sudden aged up and then became a new cicada. I would feel better if it was like, no, this isn't actually Grace. This is just how she sees herself and her going to save her uncle. And also would make it more sense why they were not able to they weren't able to do any damage to her at all. Like they weren't able to touch her. It would make more sense if it's because she's projecting this, which means she is able to have superhuman abilities and make it to where she cannot be touched. I don't know. I'll be curious to see what they decide to do with that. But with that being said, I'm excited to see what happens next. So on to the next episode. See you there. Now, episode 17, Time Bomb. Okay, so definitely have a good explanation for why Grace is the new cicada. However, once again, we get down to the fact, I'm sorry, there's just sometimes you have to make tough decisions to save the lives of so many people. The girl's in a coma. All you gotta do is give her the freaking cure. Now, to be fair, they did throw in it was one line, but unfortunately it came after they were like, oh, she's in a coma, we need her consent. Just like, so basically that's the priority, is that they need her consent. But they did say that in her current condition, it's not a good time to. I can't remember the terminology that was used now. But basically saying that her condition is very fragile. So if they tried to administer the cure now, it may not turn out well. That I can buy. But once again, like I said, the priority is, well, we need her consent. Why? This is to save lives. Like, she's clearly on a killing spree, and she's more powerful than Orlin. Because even Killer Frost is not effective against her. Like, she's 10 times more powerful than Orlin was as Cicada. So clearly, this would be a good scenario whenever it's ready to happen. You need to inject her with the cure. You can't let your morals get in the way of saving so many lives. You give the cure to this one girl. That's it, But aside from that, I thought this was a good episode. I thought going after the girl that ended up killing her mom and dad, even though it was an accident, I mean, it makes sense why she wants to. Because she, in her coma, she heard all of this stuff that Dwyer was giving her under the influence of the dark matter and the cicada powers. And I really do think it messed with his mind a lot, because now that he doesn't have those powers, you can see he's a lot more reasonable. As Cicada, you could see he was full of anger, full of rage, full of hatred. But then, now that he's not, I think that took away a lot of that hatred and rage. But unfortunately, he projected so much of that to her, and she just soaked it all in. And like they said, because the wound is in her brain, it's like amplifying her powers. And I think also amplifying that rage and hatred. So she's not, I don't think it's going to be possible to reason with her and be like, hey, you want to take this cure? That's why I mean, you got to give it to her. I know it's not morally sound for them to do that, but you got to do it. Because if you don't, I mean, people are going to die. It's going to happen. She's going to kill people. I'm surprised she didn't kill Flash after she killed her Uncle Dad. But yeah, I really hope that doesn't become the main talking point near the end of the season where it's like, okay, she's stable enough, now we can give her the cure. No, we can't do that. We need her consent first. If it gets to that point being the argument and people getting pissed over that, this season might lose me because that would just be stupid. Um, but yeah, I got the feeling when Orlin was pleading with her and trying to talk her down, I kind of got the feeling that she was going to kill him by the end of the episode because, she is on such a quest to kill all the people, all the metahumans because of what happened to her parents and because of all the things that she heard and the fact that, I mean, this dark matter has been infused in her brain for so long. It's not like Orlin where he was already an adult and then he got infused and then it's like a few months that he's had it is all he had to deal with. She grew up with it. And I'm guessing it's one of those weird like time paradox things because I'm guessing if Orlin were alive, he would have gotten her the cure. But because she comes back from another time and kills him, that means one, she grew up without Orlin, which means she probably blames the metahumans for his death too, but also she doesn't get the cure because I'm sure he would have had them administered even without Grace's consent. He would have said, give her the cure, please. So it's some weird time paradox where because her future self killed him, that's going to lead to her future self, because she's going to grow up and become that. But yeah, the family in this one, the lady Vicky, which the episode's called Time Bomb, and then her kid called her, was it the kid or her husband? One of them called her a ticking time bomb, and I mean that would be a cool name for her, Time Bomb, because she can make things into a bomb. But anyways, yeah, that story I liked as well because it does make sense that she's hid it from them for so long, and then they find out. Yeah, the initial reaction would be, what the hell? You've been hiding this from us? But then I like the fact that after she has a chance to talk to her daughter sees it's still her mom. Even though she has these powers, it's still her mom. And I'm sure the husband would come around eventually too. So, yeah, I like how they handled the family aspect though, because it was very real. Which ironically parallels to Nora and what she's going through in this, because Thawne tells her to tell Barry everything. Unfortunately for her, Sherlock steps in, and I don't know, you kind of understand Barry's reaction because it's not Nora owning up to her mistakes and telling him after all this time. And even if so, I mean, he would still probably have this initial reaction. He'd probably be like, you're working with one of my greatest enemies. I told you about him. Like, even though they did have that talk about him, he's like, yeah, I'm sure if he had the chance, he might change too. But still, like, you're working with his number one enemy that killed his mom. Like, that's not okay. But yeah, the fact that she didn't get the chance to tell them, it looked like she was trying to work up the courage but then she just couldn't. And so Sherlock had to step in, and give them all the details and tell them exactly what's going on. Now, of course, she'll have to explain she'll probably try to explain her way out of it, say, no, it was to save you, Dad. But, I mean, I think I don't know. I honestly don't know if Thawne's plan is evil or not. Like, it's really hard to tell because there are some times, I mean, most of the time he is just out for himself, but this could have been a case where he's looking to help her get the flashback, but also he gets something out of it in return too. So it could be one of those things where he's doing good, but also he's serving himself in the process. But my gut instinct leans towards he's just working Nora until he gets what he wants out of this whole situation. I don't know. He did seem very somber whenever he was like, it's too late at the beginning of this episode, but who knows? That could all be an act. But yeah, Barry locking her up is probably going to be a matter of debate, if I had to guess, for this next episode. Because I'm sure he and Iris, for him, I mean, there's no question. He's locking her up because she's working with Thawne, and in his mind, who knows what that means? Like, this could be not his real daughter. This could be Thawne using her, and she doesn't even know it. For Iris, though, I mean, she obviously doesn't like Thawne either, but I don't think she would have the same hatred that Barry does. So I think, in her mind, she's going to be a little bit more rational and reasonable with the whole situation. So I'm sure they're probably going to, clash over this a little bit because, yeah, I mean, it's a tough choice. And again, the fact that she's not the one that came clean, that Sherlock had to be the one to figure it out and tell everybody, yeah, that does make it a lot worse for her and in Barry's mind as well. But yeah, so I'll be curious to see what happens next with all of this. Aside from that, the other story that wasn't as important, but I still liked because they did bring up some good topics of debate, is the Cisco Camilla stuff. Because Ralph forces his way into the scene and tries to force Camilla to meet the rest of the team. And of course, Cisco's like, no. Like, she doesn't need to know about all this. Which I do agree with Cisco. Like, it doesn't need to be a forced thing. This is their first official, like, date. Like, they're officially dating now. So there's no reason for him to do that. But at the same time, I did like the scene with him and Ralph. Because Ralph pretty much says, like, you can't keep these two worlds separate. And that's so true. And then it kind of parallels with the rest of this episode, with Vicky hiding her truth from her family and Nora hiding her truth from the team. Like, it's not something you can keep hidden for long. Like, eventually she's going to find out. So it's just a matter of, do you tell her or does she find out and get pissed about it? It's kind of, I think, what the argument is there. But anyways, with that being said, on to the final of these 3 episodes. See you there. And finally, episode 18, Godspeed. So we finally get to see the events that led to Nora deciding to come back in time. I'll be perfectly honest, though, it seems a little weird that, like, all of this was decided so quickly. Like, I don't know, just the way this was all set up, it made me think that she had been already, like, excess. Like, she had already been doing this for a little bit. Like, that's what she suggested at the beginning. She could have been lying about that. But I don't know, it seemed like she'd already been doing this for a bit. She'd already been talking to Thawne for a little bit before she actually went back in time. But the thing is, whenever she goes and visits Thawne before she finds out her dad's the Flash, it says that there's only like an hour and something minutes, like an hour and 15 minutes or something like that, which means, and I know she's been going back, like, she's not been like going back a couple hours later. Like, she's been going back within that hour. But the thing is, that means she also decided to go back and talked with him about the plan within like a short amount of time. Like, it seems weird that it was that quick. I assumed it had probably been like she went and talked to him, he gave her this idea, she had to have a few days to think about it and then decided. But no, it's like she went and talked to him, he had like an hour and 15 minutes left, and then she goes to the museum, she finds out her dad's the Flash, and then probably, I guess, within like 15 minutes they came up with this plan. Like, it seems weird that all of this happened so quickly. At least that's what I assume happened, because there's no other explanation. And I still don't know what that clock is for. Like, he says he's a condemned man, and talking about, like, there's the timer that shows a countdown to something. I don't know what's going to be the thing that finishes him, but apparently that's how much time he has left until he dies. I don't know how or why exactly. But yeah, it was nice to actually see the events that led up to this, like getting to see Nora in action a little bit as a CSI, and then finding out how she realized she had the powers. This guy named Godspeed that hit her with the lightning and broke the thing that was diffusing her powers. So yeah, I liked getting to see all of that. I still feel like she still acts a little too young for what she's supposed to be. And I have my issues with what Barry decides to do at the end. Because, like, I understand where he's coming from, like understand why he's so upset about it. Like I get it. Vaughn is somebody he clearly is still very emotional about. But I mean, I don't know. It's hard because he does say why. He's like, you kept going back to Thawne even after you learned what he did to my mother, and you kept lying to us about it. So it's like, I understand his point of view, but also it's your daughter. Like, I don't know. I'm mixed. I'm mixed on how I feel about this. I don't know how I feel about it. And I'm sure, Iris is not going to be happy that Barry made that decision without her knowledge, because she was ready to give Nora another chance, and Barry just decided no. We also get to see the last video message that Barry made to Nora before, I guess, I don't know if he died or if he just disappeared, but whatever it was, apparently it has something to do with the crisis, which is going to be next season's crossover. So I'm wondering if that means there's going to be a point where it looks like he should die or he should disappear, but then he doesn't because something in the timeline changes. So I don't know. I'm curious to find out what happens, but it seemed like that's what was going on because there's like a bunch of explosions and stuff happening, and just that's all I can think of is that it's probably something to do with the crisis because they talked about that at some point. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I liked the episode. I liked getting to see Nora in the future, everything that led up to prior events of this season. But yeah, I just don't know how I feel about that decision at the end. Like, it's understandable, but also I don't know if I agree. And I still don't know whether to trust Thawne or not. I still don't know if what he's trying to do is going to adversely hurt the team or if it's going to help them while also helping himself. I doubt he's going to do something that's just going to help Nora and Barry and that's it. I highly doubt that's something he would do. He's not the type of the person that would just be like, "Oh yeah, let me just help Barry and Nora. It's fine. I got this. I'll help you guys out for everything you've done for me," which is nothing. So yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see the next few episodes. There's only 4 left. The plan is to watch 2 and 2, which honestly I think after I get through these 3, I think I am gonna watch like the final 4, but do a review 2 episodes and 2 episodes, just that way, because I don't want to, blue ball myself and just, oh, what's gonna happen? You gotta wait until you watch the other 3 series and then you can come back and watch the ending. So, yeah, I think that's the plan. But anyways, that being said, that's it for these 3 episodes. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 3? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe. Future Flash reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.